So, MacIver agus fáilte. Cymra hasif. Shmisha Donna, no, forgive me. Nika going? And how we do, like, that's as much Gaelic as you'll get from me today, but I really wanted to say that. So good morning everyone, welcome. My name's Donna Smith, I'm Chief Executive at the Scottish Crofting Federation, and I'm really delighted to be welcoming you all here today, and we're delighted to be in Stornoway. We had a long talk about where to hold our gathering this year, and we felt it was really an excellent opportunity to come here and tie in with the 100 years of celebrating community land ownership, and also then hence the idea of today came into being to sort of tie that in to our gathering event tomorrow. So it's really fantastic to see so many of you here, and we're very much looking forward to a day of both reflection and reminiscing, but also thinking about the future and the role that community ownership and crofting has to play in that. And we're delighted today to be partnering in this event with Community Land Scotland and Community Land Outer Hebrides. Thank you very much for your support in helping us put this event on. And they're going to have a few words. So I'm just going to hand over to Iain from Community Land Scotland to say a few words, and then we'll get started into our chats.
I'm very bad at holding the microphone close to my face, so bear with me. Is mi Iain Craig, so we go put this on Fen and Corsmouth na Halba. We're really pleased and thankful for the invite to be here today, so thank you very much to everybody for that. We as an organisation have been working on Lín an Éireann, or the 100 Years of Community Ownership project. Myself and Ryan, who's with me today, are going to be having a fun time building a digital archive, and the ambition of that archive is to try and capture as many of the lived experiences and knowledge of community owners, the experience before buyout, the process during it, and also what people have done with it, and all of that wealth of knowledge and information to be there for the future, to be safeguarded. And I don't know how much the funders know this, but also to hopefully inspire others to follow in your footsteps. So the website's there, it's 100years.scot. There's paraphernalia on every table, there's wee flyers kicking about, so please do have a look. For the community owners in the room, please take the time to have a look and reach out to us. We're really happy to help or come and facilitate sessions, or to help you online, or whatever you might need. It's a really simple process, it can just be, this has really turned into an advert, I'm sorry. But it can be just as simple as adding some text to the site to sort of document. You'll see a slightly provocative timeline on the table. It was a very difficult process to reach a conclusion of what should be included in that. But we wanted to have a starting point of actually things that we felt were really significant, and maybe to act as a bit of an impetus to people to make sure that their stories are included in that, because the number of times we hear the same thing of we don't have very much to say, or are not sure why it would matter for our story to be included, happens a lot. It happens not only in the world of community ownership, I'd say, but I think these histories are really, really important, and every single community buyout I think that's happened, of which there are 500 plus, have been different and nuanced and important and significant in their own way. So yeah, I think it's important that we value it. I think I'm supposed to thank the funders as well, so to Creative Scotland, the Scottish Government and Heritage Lottery Fund, who have very kindly funded it. We are in the post until midsummer, so there is a bit of a time pressure, but we're hoping we might be able to stay for longer if we find the money. And if anyone's got a pot of gold, then please get in touch. Well, and thank you, cheers.
Right, so our first speaker this morning is Iain MacIver, who I'm sure doesn't need much introduction to many of you in the room.
Well, first of all, can I say how pleased I am that we're meeting here today, and thank all those who have been responsible for bringing this together. And hopefully those of you who are here will find today and tomorrow useful and another major step forward in the life of community land ownership and those who are aspiring to follow in the footsteps. I've taken my watch with me because those who know me will know how difficult it will be for me to speak for 8 minutes. I have to make an admission as well. I was going to speak, first of all, about the Stornoway Trust. It's in a dilemma speaking to people about something that they probably know a lot more about than I do. And then those who don't, how you could explain 100 years in 8 minutes. So I was going to focus on crofting, but when I'm seeing what's in the paper in front of us, I'll try now and do a bit of both. As you know, 101 years last Tuesday, the Stornoway Trust was formed, and the world could have been very different if the whole island had taken advantage of the offer that Lord Leverhulme then made. But for a variety of reasons, if you consider the situation back then, you had the rural parts of Lewis under the control of Ross Cromarty with the district councils, and you had the Stornoway borough run by the Stornoway Town Council. And he offered land in two parts. The 7-mile radius from the centre of Stornoway, where the trust office is today, incidentally, to the Town Council, and the rest to the District Council. Now, both looked at it seriously, but if you consider that the 1886 Act was only a generation earlier, there was very little infrastructure and job opportunities in the rural area, and there was people still very tied to the land and suspicious of the offer. That didn't go forward, but the offer to the Town Council and to the community was taken. But instead of taking the 7-mile radius, it was agreed that it would be the borough of Stornoway plus the parish of Stornoway plus a small portion of the parish of Lochs, which then comprised of Arnish Farm, Moorland and Manor Farm, Moorland, and the Stornoway General Pasture, which the Crofters in Point and Sandwich were dependent on for their summer grazings. So the Town Council was, there was an administration offer on the table. The businessmen saw the opportunity that was there. The councillors, the politicians saw the opportunity, and the trust was then formed. Back then, we were talking of high land rents. A croft rent was equivalent to 15% of the agricultural wage of the time, and the trust was very dependent for its survival on these rents. So the way I look at it, it was the crofting community and the few payers who were actually funding the operation. And in order for it to survive, it had also had farmland. Now, farmland came under different legislation. Crofters had security of tenure, but the responsibility to manage and look after their own land and their own grazing, while the landlord had to make good the agricultural holdings. So what followed over the years was that the trust sold off these assets or liabilities in order to avoid having to maintain farmland and property that they couldn't afford. They also had houses. Again, when the council introduced, or the government gave council tenants the right to buy, the trust did the same. Crofting is very much a big part of Stornoway Trust. 1,300 crofters, 13% of the adult population living within the trust are crofters. If you add their spouses and their family, then that becomes a far higher percentage. And over the years, the trust has tried to look after the interests of the crofters. If land was required, it would only be made available with the consent of and with the agreement of the crofting community. The first real boost to crofting came after the 55 Act, when there was development money available through crofter housing, crofter improvements, CAGs, and the trust operated a system through the legislation where parents could renounce their tenure in order for the croft to go to the next of kin or the oldest son usually. And then the croft house would be taken off and not leased back. It was called a Section 18 agreement, and to this day, unless they were decrofted subsequently, they have to be decrofted today in order for them to be sold on. But it enabled the family to stay as a unit. The son would be working the croft, and the family and the parents would be living next door in the croft house. But that has changed a lot. In more recent years, the biggest problem for housing is that there isn't land available on the crofts, because the crofts have been developed to a degree where it's difficult to find additional space, and what that causes. There's difficulty in getting infrastructure onto the common grazing, where there's plenty of space, but difficult to fund. Some grazings have gone against making land available for larger housing, again because they want to keep what's there for their own, or they don't want to see their sort of way of life changed. There are a whole host of reasons which we could spend all day talking about. But crofting is something that, if we're not careful, we could lose. We could lose through lack of use. If you think that one day, back in the early days, crofters had rights to the land and the sea, and over years the rights to the sea was diminished and more or less eroded. You know, you could take seaweed from the shore, you could take shellfish, you could take fish, but then rules and regulations came in which it's not as easy to do that today. And if we don't maintain our moorland and look after our moorland and work the moorland, that could be taken away as well if we're not careful. But there are huge opportunities for crofting to provide what government is looking for. Within the trust, we were looking at renewables as one of the ways in which crofting could be reinvigorated, because they would create access, it would create money to crofters to reinvest back into crofting activity, and it would create community benefit and community equity, which then could be ploughed back to create better infrastructure, better opportunities, not just for the crofter, but for the families of those crofters who are also an important part of the community. If you want to come to Lewis, you would want to come. If you want to stay in Lewis, you would want to have a future for your family as well. And if you do leave, and no one says that everybody born in Lewis should stay on Lewis, if you're born into a crofting community, it would be good to know that there is always a chance for you to make your living there or return there in the future. That there's an easy road to live where you want to live, enjoy a quality of life that anyone would expect today, and play a useful part in that community while you're doing so. So I'm not going to say too much about or any more about the trust. I would rather try and answer questions that you have and listen to what you probably don't want to hear from me, but if you have questions, I'll be far more comfortable answering them from the table. But the trust is 100 years. It shows that if there's proof needed that community can manage itself, then the trust is there to show that it can, and hopefully inspire others. There are challenges, but there are huge benefits, and the important thing is that the community take the fact that they have control of the land and the ownership of the ground they're standing on. It's that community's duty to look after it in the best way possible, and it's also in the responsibility of others, particularly agencies, to work with the community to ensure that the community can deliver what they want to do on their terms in a way that will allow a sustainable future, whether you're living on the outskirts of Stornoway or in the hills of Uig or an offshore island off another island. Doesn't make any difference. If it's where you live, where you want to be, then you should be helped in every way possible to enjoy that way of life. So So I think that's 8 minutes.